Right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is good to see everybody. I know we've got a action-packed, very filled session coming up here, so we're going to jump right into it. We're going to wait to do national updates till the end because this is going to be this is a pretty cool session that we have here today, and it's a pretty cool panel. So for those who don't know, I am Ed Jamison. I am the CEO for Operation Kindness, just north of Dallas, Texas. I'm joining you from Fort Myers, Florida today, though. This is a super cool topic that I would not have missed for anything, and very honored to be able to get this kicked off. But I am actually going to back up out of the way and very excited and honored to introduce my good friend Sheila Kouhkan from CARE. She is going to pick things up from here. Again, when it had the opportunity to talk on or to introduce this session, and this was a very easy. There are some amazing people on here, and let's get right to it. So I will kick it over to you, Sheila. Have at it.
Thank you so much, Ed, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm super excited to be co-hosting my first call with Ed. This is an incredibly nice honor, but also excited to be facilitating the conversation with my colleague, Dr. Luna. So I'm Sheila Kouhkan. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer for Companions and Animals and Reform for Equity, and Dr. Luna is our Dean of the Circle of Learning and Leadership. We have an incredible panel today, lots of really wonderful voices and stories to be heard. So that's why we're kind of saving everything for the end as far as national announcements, but I will hand it over to Dr. Luna to kick it off.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well and surviving the heat. I want to thank Maddie's for their ongoing support of CARE and also the Juneteenth promotion that we just had. We had over 1,500 registrants for the course, which I believe demonstrates an awareness of the REDI courses being of value. So thank you to everyone who has been supporting us. I also want to thank our panelists for taking the time to join the conversation today and share their honest input about their REDI experience. They've done beautiful work, and I'm just really happy to be able to celebrate them today. So if the wonderful panelists who are here with us today, if you would please introduce yourselves and share your organization, your location, and why you signed up for REDI, that would be fantastic. Brad?
I guess I'm first. My name is Brad Shear. I'm the CEO of the Potter League for Animals. We have 3 locations throughout Rhode Island. And we signed up for REDI. We've been looking at, we certainly acknowledged and knew that our field was predominantly white, was not reaching the communities that we wanted to reach. We saw that ourselves, that we were not effectively interacting with the people we wanted to interact with. And so we had talked to some DEI consultants. I talked to some colleagues and other nonprofits in the area about who they were working with. And I was having trouble finding someone who they were really satisfied with. And when the course came along that was specific really to animal wellness, it absolutely spoke to us about the right way to go, and that our entire organization could take it together was compelling for us.
Thank you.
I can go next. My name is Mindi Callison, and I'm the founder of Bailing Out Benji. We are, historically speaking, an anti-puppy mill nonprofit, but we also do a lot of work with humans and animals through our pet food pantry that we founded right in central Iowa. And we were so excited to do the REDI training. We were chomping at the bit the whole time. I was so excited when it was finally launched, and we had our entire admin team take it. We decided to take it all on the same day. We were watching the videos separately, but we were going through the courses so we could have meaningful discussions as we took the training. And we found that to be so extremely helpful. We wanted to be learning, but also actively trying to figure out how we could implement some of these things that we learned into our own programs. And all I can say is we're really ready for the silver certification. So I can't wait until that rolls out.
Sophie? Erika? Hi, Erika.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Whoever
Erika, you want to go
would like-
first?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, go.
I am Erika Pratte, the Executive Director at Partners for Pets Humane Society. We're located in rural Illinois. So similar to what Brad was mentioning, most of our demographic is very white. So we were trying to kind of tune into some of the areas surrounding our facility and how we could better support them and make them feel comfortable working with our organization through whatever services we could potentially provide to them. So we were super excited to just kind of change and grow our organization to be more people and community centric rather than, we kind of honed in on being very good at animal well-being and what we could provide to animals, but we weren't doing the best that we could for the people of our community. So I, as the executive director, felt like this was a wonderful opportunity to get our team involved in what we could do to support our community in a new way. And it has definitely been a wonderful experience for all involved.
Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie Gamand. I am a photographer, artist, and advocate. I'm currently based in Los Angeles. My work is all about the human-dog bond. And for the past 12 years, I've been witnessing, documenting, and telling the stories of animal organizations and the communities that they serve. So the reason I'm just a one-person, organization. I don't have a whole team. But the reason I took the REDI course is because I wanted to equip myself with better reflexes and the vocabulary I needed to really be a better advocate for the animals and their people that I meet, on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. Brad, would you mind just kind of sharing the story around how you and your team took the REDI course together, as well as how you engaged your board?
Yeah, so our entire staff and board registered for REDI and all took it at the same time. So we gave ourselves a window of a few weeks. I think it was about a month actually for everyone to complete it. And then we had a dedicated day for the staff. We shut down all 3 of our locations, brought all the staff together at one site to sort of debrief what we had all learned together. I think I appreciate the self-paced nature of the course and that anyone can take it anywhere. But for us, it was really important that we came together afterwards to say, okay, how does this affect us as a group? And so I was leading that discussion. I'm certainly not an expert, along with our chief mission officer, Todd Kramer. And we had 2 versions of how the day would go. One would be, we try to start a conversation and nobody says anything. And so we have to talk the whole time. And the other version was we just kind of try to get a conversation started and people just get rolling. And we thankfully experienced the second version of the day, which was for people were really engaged. They were thankful about the opportunity to take the course, but also to talk about it and think about how it really affects our work day to day. So we had awareness, but people really wanted to create action from that. Similar with our board, we dedicated most of a board meeting to debriefing the course. And similarly, the board, who I think are the most overlooked in this area. I think we forget how important boards are to actually making progress and long-term strategic change, that our board really wanted to do something with the information, not just learn, but actually take action. So it was really heartening to see that, and the conversation continues. And so I could keep talking, but there's
no, it's fine. I'm so glad that you got buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let me see here. I'm having a brain cloud. So oh, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a question in the chat that I thought might be helpful to address first, just kind of an overview of what REDI is, if you want to maybe share high level what our panel has experienced recently.
Well, REDI is, of course, our racial equity, diversity, and inclusion course. And for me, I was in higher ed for 25 years before I came to CARE, and that was just in January. For me, the course content is incredibly important because it has been based on BIPOC experiences, lived experiences. It is what we've gone through. And so I think to be able to share that provides an insight into the sort of challenges, right, that go across really life, right? You think that in terms of animal welfare, that the kindness that goes along with it, right? The generosity of spirit that drives animal welfare, that would be enough of an impetus to get through implicit bias. And yet we know that that's not the case, right? And so in order to, kind of get through that and see to the needs of both humans and animals, the course is really designed to sort of escort you through that process of rethinking. And of course, it's not something that's meant to shame anyone. It's there to help you rethink, right, how we've been culturally informed, how we've been really programmed in many ways by a system that has built-in advantages for certain people, right? And so I find the course, I've taken the course, I'm proud to be certified. I learned a lot because it gave me a language to put to things that I was only feeling or suspecting, but not quite able to put my finger on. And so, I think for me as a lifelong learner, that's what's important about the course to me. And then seeing it be able to play out and help others to benefit, right? Again, human and animal alike. I think that we all win in that case. Sheila, was there anything else?
I think there are other questions we can maybe keep for the end. Sorry to interrupt the panel. I just want to get that out.
Yeah, and actually that gave me a chance to also think in my head. Brad, have you noticed that it relieved any stress or compassion fatigue for your staff or volunteers?
Yeah, and one of the things that came out of those early discussions was that it changed the perspective of some of our staff towards the people we were helping, because I think it's typical in our field, and historically we've sort of looked at ourselves as heroes who had to bail out people who made bad choices. Those people, and they don't have any money, and they got a cat, and they shouldn't have gotten a cat because they can't afford veterinary. We sort of other people regularly and blame people for choices that we all make. Right? They got a pet because they love animals. And I think it changed that perspective to say, well, everyone I'm encountering is just like me. They just love their pets. And we all live in this place that has this history and current reality of structural racism and discrimination, and people's choices become limited by their circumstances that they are not that they didn't cause, right? I've come to this place because of all these structures that are working against me, and I have this love for an animal that's the same as my love for an animal, and I think that commonality really helped our staff to see, I'm working with someone who's just like me, who wants the same things I want, and is in these circumstances that we can partner together to overcome. Instead of feeling put upon, like, oh, why did somebody else have a litter of puppies? Why did somebody else decide to do this? And they can see that, the structure in our society that creates challenges has affected people in a way that they might need help to overcome. And often we are getting them, sometimes like at our veterinary clinic, they're going to be our client forever. We're going to subsidize the veterinary care of their pet for the life of that pet. And we are happy to do that because it keeps the pet in a home when they're loved, and it focused on, as we've said a couple of times, the human animal bond. And it really relieves a lot of stress from our staff to say, instead of fighting against people who are in difficult circumstances, we're actually on the same side and we're helping them, and it makes their whole perspective of their work so much better. And it makes them happier to come in. It relieves a tremendous amount of stress.
Thank
I see
you.
a guy who looks like James with the name Johnny Jenkins with his hand up. I don't know what that means.
Johnny,
No, it's me. I have no
Oh,
idea
James.
why Johnny Jenkins's name is. Oh, you know what it is? I think I clicked on Johnny and I share a calendar, and I think I clicked on his calendar invite. That is really, really funny. Anyway, hello from Johnny. I, I just jumped in to say thank you to all of you who took the course and support the course. I see Mindi up there from Bailing Out Benji, who's always amplifying CARE's work. I just wanted to say thank you. I know the course is it's an interesting place and interesting timing. And but I think another thing that's so important is that there are, because of the dynamics in the country, and they've always been there, but some of them have been unearthed, I'll say. There are a lot of DEI practitioners on the market these days. Most of them, by the way, are not BIPOC. And so I think that's so important that this is a course offered with the grace of BIPOC folks, who many of which are traumatized and live with trauma every day, but offer it in solidarity with you all, because ultimately we want the best things for people and pets. But I think the other thing to remember is that the donations and the work and the payments that go into REDI go directly back into supporting people and pets. Unlike, for-profit DEI organizations, those profits leave this space, and the investment that you all have put into REDI go right back into communities where we're helping people stay at home with their pets. So I think it's just such a full circle thing. And so I've quite enjoyed seeing all of your messages on LinkedIn, showing that you have your REDI certification. And I just think it's a beautiful thing. And I thank Dr. Luna for dropping into all of this craziness just after being hired. So anyway, I just wanted to say that and say thank you. From Johnny too.
Thank you, James and Johnny. Mindi, would you like to share how human and animal well-being has helped with your programs or any of the research that you've been doing?
Yeah, so to piggyback off of what Brad and Erika both said, I'm in rural Iowa, and I was talking to Sheila beforehand about what our statistics look like in Iowa, because so many organizations, they want to take the REDI course, or they want to do some kind of DEI training, but they think, well, my state's white, I don't have any people of color I'm serving, and so they're less likely or more hesitant to get involved in these kinds of trainings. But I can tell you that if you think that just means you aren't touching base with that type of community or the BIPOC community in your area that you're serving. So I'm right here in Story County, Iowa, and our population is 86.7% white, but 18% of our population lives below the poverty line. Our rent here in, because I live in Ames, we have a big football team. It's Iowa State University, if anyone likes college football. So our rent is extremely high. Students have a really hard time paying rent. Everyone kind of expects them to take out loans. And so a lot of what the REDI training taught us through the work that we're doing with our pet food pantry and our work with animal rescue organizations and, fighting the puppy mill industry, it shows us that people are the ones who matter, right? We can't help people without we can't help pets without first helping their people. And I'm sure everybody on this call at some point has said, ugh, I hate people, that's why I save dogs, right? How many times are you watching a movie where you can't see the dog die, but you're fine with everybody else getting slaughtered in the movie, right? These are things that are desensitizing us every single day. And so what myself and my team found is that by taking this REDI course, it really gave us that historical perspective of why people do matter, why we can't forget the humanity in what we're doing. You know, again, I work on puppy mill issues. I see the worst of the worst all the time. It is really easy to lose hope and lose faith in humanity, but that doesn't mean every person you're coming in contact with is bad. Not, oh, I love that. Michelle commented, she left a comment that says every leash is attached to a human. And that's exactly it. And that's why we're all here today. I know you all want to learn more about the REDI course, and I really can't recommend it enough. Like what Brad said, our team, after we were done taking the course, the three of us digested how we thought we could change. And then we got on a Zoom call with we have 300 volunteers across the country. So we shared with them what we learned through this training and how we thought we could use that at our tabling events and at just the work that we're doing to educate the public and reach the public. And then we also, because I know that not everybody is on the same path or on the same step of every path, we provided an anonymous survey monkey and just said, if you have a question, if you want something that you want us to ask or answer in the next call or in an email to our volunteers, please feel free to reach out to us privately. And that did help. There were a few people who had questions that they didn't necessarily feel comfortable asking in front of 300 people. But yeah, we tried to also make it as comfortable for our team while having a really hard conversation.
Mindi, that actually relates to what I was going to ask too, which was like, say you've taken, the REDI training, right? And an organization doesn't even know where to begin to implement some aspect of that training. What would your advice be, right, for just getting off the ground?
Right. So I'm going to use my pet food pantry as an example, because I know a lot of organizations, that's how they want to start helping. If you're an animal shelter, an animal welfare organization, typically we see more organizations going towards having that. We've always been no questions asked. People can come and schedule appointments at any time. And the only question we ask is, how many pets do you have and what diet do they need? Even when we first started, we were just giving people whatever we had. And it was kind of like, take it or leave it, right? That's all we had. Our resources were so small, take it or leave it. And so, especially now that we have a larger space, we have a little more funding for that, we're able to work with people and say, what is your current diet? What does your dog need? And so we were looking at our programs and deciding what are our policies serving, or who are the policies serving? Are they serving us or are they serving the people? If you're an animal shelter, and you say someone has to own a home before they can adopt a dog, who is that serving? Is it serving the animal who's been in that kennel for months or years? Or is it serving your organization so you feel like you're doing the best for your community, the safety of that dog? So I would really look at some of your policies and then try to ask those hard questions. Who is this helping? Who is this hurting? And why was this policy put in place to begin with?
Wow. Thank you. Sophie, how did you feel about your REDI training experience? Was there anything that was different from other courses you may have taken?
So I'm a baby in taking courses because I'm a solo person. I don't have a team and administration. I don't have people to really do that work with. So I always felt like I was trying to be very conscious of how I do my work and how I approach communities I work with and organizations I work with. But I reached a point where I felt like I was missing maybe some good reflexes and some wordings and concepts. And I really wanted to professionalize my approach a little bit. I knew of CARE through social media, I had been following, and I just felt like CARE managed to create a really warm, safe environment to engage in these conversations, which sometimes can be a little difficult, especially when you look like me and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hear all the horrible ways in which I've been a terrible human, And I was really afraid of feeling that shame and that burn of I'm white and I've been doing horrible things before I was born, But with CARE, it felt like a real conversation, safe, approachable, warm, welcoming. And so I decided this is where I'm going to take that course and take the jump to really become better.
Has it helped you in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been trying to be a little more intentional in how I approach my work. And shortly after I took the course, I was actually planning on spending a week in Navajo Nation. So this is typically a community that has been, you know, maybe misrepresented and sometimes even exploited by big animal organizations that extract stories from the community to raise money and to, you know, do the work that they do. They serve the community as well, but there's areas maybe where we haven't been fair to the community. And so I knew going in that I wanted to be really intentional, do the work before and prepare, like check my objectives. How am I going to approach this work? Again, I'm a photographer, an artist, a storyteller. So my job is to go somewhere and take photos and basically, you know, take the stories out and present them to the world. And so that comes with a huge responsibility. How do we tell those stories? When we fundraise for example, an animal or a project that we have with our organizations, how do we fundraise? What are the stories we're telling our people, our donors? For the longest time, I think animal organizations have been using stories of bad people versus us, the good people who are rescuing animals. And so how do we transform this so that we actually support these communities in the way they want to be supported and heard? So my approach, you know, for the Navajo Nation project was really to define my objectives, to make sure my approach, checking all my T's against what I had learned during the REDI course, and making sure that the way I operate moving forward really aligns with the person I want to be. And, you know, the things that I know now, thanks to the REDI course and the work I've done.
You know, I've, in my short time with CARE and talking with people and mentioning the REDI course, I've definitely encountered people who were very reluctant, right, to even think about taking that course, as if taking the course itself was some sign of ignorance or, you know, something like that. Could I ask you, if you encountered somebody who was reluctant to take the course, what would you say to them, or how would you maybe convince them that it's worthwhile for them?
Right. I think first, you know, it might be super interesting as an exercise to observe your discomfort and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Like for me, for example, I think the discomfort in engaging in this conversation was, well, I'm French, English, I'm not super comfortable with some words, so not having the vocabulary. I was worried I was going to feel shame. Like those are really powerful feelings. And so once I observed that and I understood it, I figured I'm going to find a good partner that I feel safe with to engage in those conversations. And that was CARE for me. But so asking yourself those questions, also, perhaps some people feel like, you know, I've done the work, I know enough, like I feel comfortable where I am, like I don't feel like challenging that, right? I think we can always exercise those muscles. At the end of the day, it's really about staying in the conversation and in the fight and building those muscles so that next time you have the opportunity to speak up or to do something the right way, you know, you are equipped and ready and it comes more natural to you. Also, I think it's super important to listen to the experts. People with lived experiences. You know, James mentioned that a lot of the work that's been done with DI is done by people who don't belong to the BIPOC community. So I think it's so important to go back to the source of BIPOC people telling us what they want, what they need, how they want it. We have to listen and we have to meet them. And so listening to the experts and being vulnerable in those conversations and open-minded, I think that's the perfect place to start and to engage with something like the REDI course.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Erika, how I noticed that with your that the Humane Society Parts for Pets has really instituted a number of programs, and I was wondering how has that did the REDI training reshift your way of thinking about community-centric programs, or how you were defining it previously as opposed to after the training?
Oh, absolutely. So similar to what Mindi had kind of touched on, the organization that I'm with kind of historically was very much, and maybe animal well-being in general, was very much, oh, we hate people, you know, people are the bad guys, let's save the animals and forget who actually saves the day, the adopter, who is a human being, and the person at the end of that leash. So we doing this REDI training was not only helping us to support other communities, but to remember the root of what we're doing starts with pet ownership. If we can support the pet owners in our community who have many different lifestyles and cultures and general ways of thinking, like, you know, Brad had kind of touched on, we're already starting to solve the problem of unnecessary euthanasia and overcrowding in shelters and animal control facilities. So we really need to take a step back of our personal mindsets of, oh, my home looks like this and my life is like this, and realize that an animal lover, none of us look the same and none of our lives are the same.
Can you mention some of the programs that you've started?
Absolutely. One of my biggest takeaways from, there were so many, but one of the simplest of all the things that I learned during the training was stop assuming what people need or how we can help them, and ask the questions. So our organization went into many of the communities that we support, or, you know, we felt we were supporting, and we provided surveys similar to what Mindi, it sounds like you guys did that as well. We did surveys to the members of community centers throughout our area and asked, what can we do to support you to keep that pet in the home? Those surveys kind of came back. We had, you know, some negative feedback, and that was okay. We wanted the feedback, and it was, you know, one of the surveys said, well, all of your vaccine clinics are at your facility and we don't have the means to get to your facility. You know, we're 40 minutes away from some of these communities. So we started offering on location vaccine and wellness services. So we go to community centers who have, you know, transportation available to them so they can bring their animals to the center to receive those services for free. We do in-home behavioral training now. So some of these individuals that have, you know, acquired pets or adopted pets or unwanted litters of any kind, they're having behavioral problems, and maybe, you know, they can't keep that pet in the home. Let us come to you and show you, provide you with a kennel or whatever resources you need to help keep your pet out of animal control, because ultimately if they end up in animal control, they're going to become our problem. We want to keep them with the owner. The owner cares about them and they need the resources to keep that pet in the home. I'm trying to think if we've added any other. And then we also offer this one. We haven't come up with a way to make this easier and accessible to individuals, but we do offer free and extremely low cost spay-neuter services as well. We're really trying to come up with some kind of mobile unit so we can go on location to a community and serve that community right there, so they're not having to drive to us. But that's one we haven't quite gotten there yet.
That sounds fantastic, though.
Yeah, no, we those surveys were so extremely helpful, and we're getting ready to start another wellness and vaccine clinic in a community nearby that we're super excited about.
Thank you all so much for everything that you're doing. It's just so inspiring, and you know, I think that it shows that we care about everybody, right? That we are doing really meaningful work and helping to change things for others and meet them where they're at, and celebrating community wisdom. So I'm wondering too, what has your favorite outcome from the REDI training been, as you've seen it work in your, you know, in your own lives, in your respective shelters, and in your work? Brad, do you have a just favorite moment?
Oh boy, favorite moment. Hard. I mean, an outcome. I really enjoyed, like I said, when we all came together, the staff all came together, and we're so excited about being able to talk about what they had learned. But I think that longer term, the outcome, I think, like Mindi and Erika, we started surveying people, and we met with human service agencies in our community who we knew were the most embedded in the communities that we wanted to work with. And you know, I think we had a new language that made it easier for us to talk to them and understand them, because these are groups, when they're talking about housing, there's a group called the Newport Health Equity Zone, and there's a group called Conexión Latina that does advocacy for, and so, we were not talking to them about in the language of, we got to stop people from doing bad things to pets. We were talking about the language of structures that were creating challenges in their lives. And so we were much more readily embraced. And so it's exciting for me that we're working more with them. And then when we started asking them, who should we be talking to, they would introduce us to people. And we just found issues that were not on our radar at all. When we had a set of programs, we do vaccine clinics, we have a food pantry, but we said, well, what's out there in the health equity zone does housing advocacy, not just putting people in housing, but once you're in housing, navigating issues with their landlord. They said the number one question they get in any of their programs related to pets is, what can my landlord do related to can they tell me I have to get rid of my cat? Can they tell me I'm not allowed to take my dog over to this part of the property? Can they charge me extra for this? And people just didn't know. And it was not part of what the health equity zone really wasn't directly related to their work. So, we're trying to form a pet welcoming housing advocacy program around that, not only to help people who already have pets in homes not lose their pets or lose their home because they're trying to keep their pets, but to get landlords, especially the ones that are receiving subsidies from state and federal government, should be accepting of pets. The other thing that was not on our radar was grooming. How many people said to us, we don't have a way to groom our dog. It might be a little scary to them. It makes a mess. They don't know how to trim nails. And so we're looking at how we're going to, it just wasn't, we were thinking of essential life food, medical care, vaccines, but was on a lot of people's minds. A surprising number was, how do I stop my dog's hair from matting? And how do I stop, how do I bathe them properly? And, the hair grows over their eyes, and I'm afraid to trim the hair because I'm going to poke them in the eye with those kinds of things. We all think that, and a lot of people can pay a groomer. So we're working on how we're going to address that, which might look like mobile grooming. It might look like teaching people how to handle their animals properly as part of it. But, it's probably never would have addressed if we weren't listening.
Thank you. Mindi, your favorite?
So I don't know if I can pick a favorite, but one of my most recent wonderful things that happened was I was doing a pet expo in Nebraska just this weekend. And if you know anything about Nebraska, the demographics are very close to what they are here in Iowa. A lot of white people and a lot of white-owned rescues and shelters. And so I always joke to James and Jen that they need to give me some kind of generic care business card, because I spend a lot of time at my educational tables talking about care and the REDI training. And these shelters and rescues were talking about how overpopulated they are and how everyone is drowning in animals. And so I started that conversation again. Well, what does this look like? What do your adoption policies look like? And as I started talking about how, historically speaking, a lot of white rescues are adopting to white families. After I finished that conversation, another vendor came over, and she was a person of color, and she was like, I did not expect you to look like this. And she was from the booth behind me. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I know I'm really young. Like, I get that a lot. And she was like, no, I heard you talking and I thought that you would have been a person of color. And I was like, oh, that's really uncomfortable. No, please stop. But I was telling her about care. And so she's going to reach out to Jen and James, but she said, I feel so alone in my state. Like, you said what I felt, but I didn't know there was an organization like CARE that existed. I didn't know there were other BIPOC nonprofits out there that are doing this work. She felt so alone in the middle of Nebraska. And I was really happy that by my love of care that we were able to connect that. And as I'm saying that out loud, that sounds very white saviory, and I didn't mean for it to sound that way. But it was just one of those moments where she felt less alone. And I'm really happy. I really hope she reaches out to CARE and can feel a little less by herself in Nebraska, here in the Midwest, where there aren't very many BIPOC-owned nonprofits that are working in animal and human well-being.
Thank you. Sophie?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with this very basic, knowledge is power. But it's true. And what the REDI course and engaging with care has done for me is really giving me that knowledge, which has transformed into power. And for me, that translates into getting rid of some of my discomfort around those conversations and engaging with them and my insecurities. And so I think it's actually made me a better listener. So when I work with people that maybe I'm like, oh, there's such a big elephant in the room, or I see things that I don't agree with, or I'm less insecure about voicing those instincts and thoughts and feelings I had. And I'm also less insecure in general, which means I can just shut up and listen to what people have to tell me instead of filling the space with a lot of blather. And I think that is making me a better advocate, a better person from the animal community, and a better human in general. So that to me has been like probably the most powerful transformative aspect of engaging in this.
Thank you. Erika.
Yeah, I think I can only echo the things that have already been said, but a couple of my favorite things so far, because we're continuing the growth and REDI, and I don't think there's any stopping from here. But my immediate best moment was similar to the other organizations that have spoke. We had meetings and we had all of our team sit down and kind of digest everything that we're learning as we're going. And the first thing, one of my adoption coordinators, who I intended to be one of my hurdles, was like, we have to change our adoption application straight away. We've got to remove, why does it matter if they own their home? Why does it matter who their vet is? Why are we asking these questions? Who is it benefiting? It's not benefiting the dog who's, still in his kennel. It's not benefiting us. So that was the immediate change that we made. That was just like, okay, we're on our way. But really, and ultimately, I think the relationships that we've built with community members who maybe wouldn't have reached out for support. We've gotten employees, we've gotten volunteers. I know that we've gotten many, many adopters, and just we're reaching a community that maybe that we were not reaching before.
That's wonderful. I love all your favorite moments. I could just listen to them all day. Sheila, are you around?
I'm here, and I have total goosebumps from all of those. Thank you all for sharing. I think I had the privilege of speaking on a community conversation a few months ago where I talked about positive disruption. And this was exactly the narrative that I'm trying to share, is how disruption can be positive, and just changing the way we speak, or even creating a space where this type of conversation can exist, can cause and result in such positive changes for people and pets, right? So essentially, you are all disruptors, and I want to share, everyone who gets their REDI certification is welcomed into our membership circle as a disruptor to continue building this community where we can have these conversations, build this language, and essentially help the animals that we all love so much and the people who love them. So I welcome you all as disruptors, and I welcome anyone else who wants to take REDI and join as well. I'll share information about this circle, but all of this is possible thanks to Maddie's fund. They sponsored the scholarships that were able to make these REDI certified individuals scholarships available. And then we also have some great programs like the Changemaker Circle and our new community animal care, which Ray mentioned in the chat as well. This leads me to a really exciting announcement we want to share from Maddie's Fund. Thank you, Maddie's Fund, for all of your support. I'm going to hand it over to Irene, and thank you to our amazing panel today.
Thank you, Sheila, and thanks to everyone on the panel. Hi, everyone. I'm Irene Chancelong, a Senior Grant Specialist at Maddie's Fund. We are so honored to support CARE with a $6.5 million grant, a 5-year partnership to help BIPOC communities and their pets. So please help me in congratulating the CARE team with your emojis and applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is such an honor. Sheila, are we on for?
I think we have a few more minutes. I don't know if anyone had any questions we want to get in before we wrap up for the day, but really thank you so much, Maddie's Fund, for investing in supporting the changes that CARE and our disruptors are hoping to make. And disruptors, we will be in touch about how to continue learning and growing and implementing programs together.
I have a question, and I'm only raising my hand. I can't type. I just had reconstructive surgery on my hand, so help. I actually thank you for the terminology. BIPOC is new to me because I live in a resource-constrained country. We have 65,000 people on a good day, 2 islands, 1 country. I am the one that is not regular. I am not local. I am not from here, but every single person that we deal with as a charity vet clinic and the only shelter and the only small animal clinic in the country, there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of communication that we always want to do better, because I've taken myself out. I am not the face. I put other people forward, but in the end, the communication really needs to be the same, because we bring in volunteers, volunteer vets, volunteer techs. And for myself, I'm sold. I am so grateful that you exist so that I can take this course, so that I can communicate with all of these people that come to us internationally. We've just been approved as an externship site. So now we're going to have these universities sending these future vets, these talents, these people that want to go into shelter medicine. If they can, like 98% of their clients would be exactly this, what they're going to go home to. Maybe they will be kinder and gentler when they go back and make a difference in a place that often gets forgotten. So thank you.
I love that. That's wonderful. Thank you. And I mean, isn't that, it's always amazing to me too, that animals do save our lives, right? We save them in a very obvious way, take them in, feed them, shelter them, but really that the work, right, of how our companion animals enrich our lives, save us from depression, right? Keep us company, are there for everything, without question, right? It, to me, shows that this work is so crucial to recognize the human and the animal and how interrelated they are to surviving, right? And happiness. Are there any other questions?
I think there's one in the chat directed to Erika, and it's asking if they still ask whether people rent or own their home. Can you see that question? Oh,
I was actually just responding to it. We do not ask individuals what type of home they live in or if they rent or own. Similar to kind of how we kind of touched on that with Mindi earlier, that doesn't really benefit our organization. And we really kind of tried to shift into trusting that the individual here to adopt a pet has already looked into all of the information and thought about the financial responsibility that a pet would make upon them. So we trust that individual that if they are renting an apartment or renting a, duplex or a condo or anything like that, that they have already thought through whether or not the pet was going to increase their budget that way with rent, or if they were allowed to have a pet on the premises.
The only thing, can I add to that, Erika? Is that okay? I think it's a generational mentality that just assumes everybody grows up and owns a house, and that's not the case anymore. I'm a millennial, and most millennials are never going to own a home. Gen Z is probably, it's with our economy, it's so hard for people to own homes, but that doesn't mean they don't have a loving home. What does it mean to own something, right? I know that means a purchase, but we all have apartments that allow animals now. And I think that changing that mentality, that generational thought process that you have to own something in order to get more, doesn't make sense anymore.
Absolutely. And we also, and
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
if I may, I don't know if it's obvious based on my questions, but I volunteer with a rescue organization. I love dogs. I've had a lot of dogs in my home, but I'm also a landlord, which is why I ask. And I have zero problem with pets. Love them. But I don't own that many homes, but I've absolutely had instances where I came by and they got a new puppy, and it didn't matter whether they were middle class or they were on the poor side. I've absolutely had tenants get dogs and they forgot to say something. And I've had dogs damage homes, and I've had tenants where there were homes where you couldn't tell there was a dog there. Like, I've literally had people walk in and went, there's dogs here. It doesn't, like, it was, the house looked better when they left than when they moved in. So I know there's differences, but we certainly have people. And in the area where I live, it's a fascinating county. We have multi-million-dollar homes, and we have super poor. So we adopt dogs out to everyone, but we still ask, do you rent or own? You rent, okay, have you talked with your landlord and made sure that, you know, it's okay to get a pet? And they'll say, oh yeah, or they'll say, oh, I need to do that. And it's like, yeah, because we don't want you coming back to us in a month or 2 or 3, trying to turn your pet back in because you found out you can't have it. So that's why we ask. It doesn't matter whether you're Black, white, middle class, or poor. I've had this issue, and I don't have that many homes. So that's why I think it's still prudent to ask. Yeah, they're all adults and they should, but they don't.
I think, you know, since if, you know, when we're talking about REDI, we're talking about racial equity. And I think it's important to acknowledge that it is much more likely that BIPOC people are not going to be homeowners because of the structural racism built into our housing system. This book called The Color of Law that goes deep into you know, the federal government's purposeful redlining of and refusal to subsidize loans to BIPOC people going back decades. So, you know, you see this generational wealth that didn't get built up. White people are much more likely to be homeowners, and there's huge disparities. Our state, I believe, is one of the greatest disparities. So when we talk about renters, I think we have to be careful to acknowledge who we are talking about and what that division looks like. Because just because I own my home doesn't mean I have a tremendous amount of money. It doesn't mean I am more economically capable than someone else. I am much more likely as a white person to inherit a home from my parent than if I were a BIPOC person. And when we look, I think some of the adoption policies that we have put in place are really just harming our own cause. And again, if you haven't read the book, The Sum of Us, to look at how racist policies have harmed white people as much as they have harmed people of color, I think that's exactly what's happening in many of our adoption policies. When we put up barriers, we are harming our own cause by limiting adoption. And those limits are often amplified by race, by differences in race and the structures in our society that have created differences in race. And I will say, as both a pet owner and a parent, Jennifer, which I think Jennifer Evans also is, she is 100% right that my kids cause a lot more damage to my home than any of my pets ever had.
Yeah, thank you for adding that in, Brad. We're going to have to, we're up on the time, and we do want to be respectful. We will pick this conversation up on the Maddie's Pet Forum. I will, one of the perks to being a host is just on that topic and can completely respect everybody's. To Brad's point, we actually can make people start lying by some of our questions. And I think we've all seen that. I don't know if we're getting the truth out of the lobby. We've conditioned people to lie, to tell us what they think they want us to hear in order to become a pet parent. So keep that in mind. Can certainly respect the landlords on the call. I can understand the thought process. I don't know that there is any data on that. And Rachel had mentioned on there that, hey, questions about post-adoption support, no matter where the heck you live, those are super important anyway, you know, that you have support for people, whether you rent, own, live with your parents, whatever it is, having access to resources and pointing people to those directions, to me, has always been the best way. We cannot thank everybody enough for this call, this discussion. Again, I would not miss this for the world. It is hot as heck out here, and I am going in the pool afterwards, but I am glad that I was on panel. Thank you all so much. Sheila, it was great. I can't wait to see you in just a couple of weeks. Maddie's fun. Again, the grant to care, I think, really shows some people walk the walk, some talk the talk, and then some really put their money where their mouth is, and Maddie's fun. absolutely puts their money where their mouth is for good causes. So we appreciate you all so much. Maddie's, Care, panelists, everyone, thank you so much. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.